Muy buenas tardes, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone sends my way. From the corazón, gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video to help the message get out a little further. Thank you. Well, today I want to touch on two peelies that are not really out there like that, right? Or they don't like to be as much, and basically continue on how there's always conflict between state and federal factions, right? Even though they're from the same area or may had worked together, and something always leads into problems, right? Pedos. But this is gonna circle around Chino from San Diego, but Serrano, you know, and Travieso, Travieso Cruz from San Diego as well. First and foremost, I want to start off with Chino. I can honestly say, he was a fair individual. Real honored to have worked with him because he took people into consideration, actions, losses, and he kept his word all around, right? As it should be when you're wiggling, right? And Travieso, he was part of that crew that Rube, Rube Soto went a little loony and made a bunch of peelies, right, to back up his agenda, to surround himself with power, per se. Nevertheless, when it comes to Travieso, he's well deserved of it, right? Because for those that know who I'm speaking on, you know, I'm not going to really touch too much on him in the sense, but he was out there doing his thing, right, in SD. He got caught for putting in work under orders, and then a RICO case came into play, and that's what led him to the feds. But everything was legit with him, right? But somehow, you know, power corrupts, and to me, that comes in many angles, right? One of them is sometimes power is just too much to deal with, and you deal with it in a sense of dishonorable. But let me just take you back 2005, right? Like I just mentioned, Chino from National City, not the weird one, but Serrano, right? He had he had people doing things for him. Again, he wasn't really fond of doing prison stuff, right? He was more about the calles and moving dulce and making feria that way, right? And we kind of did a couple things hand in hand. I'll just say it like that. And again, there was losses, and he covered them. He could have washed up certain camaradas because of it. He didn't. He understood it's part of the movement, right? Of doing that. And throughout this is the first time I heard of a travieso. Travieso was right there supporting, you know, in the sense of opening cancha, going in neighborhoods and basically not taxing them, but hey, this is so and so. The only material that's going to move here is this one. You're entitled to it's your neighborhood, right? Type of thing, but you're going to respect the Pili's angle and move his alley. Whatever you want, he's going to provide, basically. And that's how it should be, right? It should always be a two-way thing. You know, you don't come to a neighborhood and impose or try to impose fear. You know, you come in a working aspect and, hey, you're going to get prices, you're going to get what you need, but you're only going to move my jale type of thing. Te doy, me das. You scratch my hand, I'll scratch yours type of thing. Anyways, the one thing about Chino, right, is he had a real like for paisanos. He was real cool with Chino from a left, and I noticed that he took care of paisanos. You know, I know maybe it's because it's a little different because it was Pelican Bay, and most of the paisanos that were up there were doing things for the carnales, regardless. Nevertheless, he showed love, as it should be, right? It's raza, regardless, and like I stated before, there's no reason why to step on gente to get above anything or get your point across, right? As many do. But anyways, he had a lot of paisanos doing things for him. I'm not gonna say just in San Diego because I'll be lying. It's all across the board, right? Nevertheless, it was Califas. Now, with this, keep in mind, I said it before. Whoever says Border Brothers Paisanos are the same thing or run the same thing from California to federal system, he's full of, straight up. He's never been to the feds. When you go to the feds, you start seeing that dislike towards camaradas. That you could say sour taste, and it comes in the fashion of there's a lot more of them there, right? So I seen paisas that tries to put a stop to it, and the paisanos take care of their own. I'll just leave it at that. They're set in one way in the feds, and they don't agree with how Califas is. But anyways, like I stated before, Travieso, he was on the streets doing his thing, right? And I'm not gonna say just for Chino, he was doing his thing for the Ramfla de San Diego as a fool, you know, opening things. And when orders came down to take care of a person, he went out and tried at least to do it right. Again, it don't work out always, right? For many reasons. But he got cracked. During that crack is when the Rico diamonds came down, and of course, he got pulled into them, and he went to the Fed. If I'm not mistaken, he got to Victorville around 2006. Yeah, because around towards the end of 2006 is when we heard that Rube had pulled him in as a carnal. And right away, at least the carnal is still in Pelican Bay, questioned it. And that's how the paperwork per se came about, right? And he was suitable. He was suitable for what he was doing for the clica, and he was suitable because he had a release date Feds picked him up, and he held quiet and pushed through, right? And for certain things he had done already in Victorville, but that's not even to the point, right? The point is, as you guys know, many of them that got made by Rube in that pool, a lot of them got their wings clipped right away. But since Travieso was suitable the right way, right, he was able to push through for a short time more, right? But he had a sore taste for paisanos. I don't know where it comes from. Sincerely, don't. From being in the feds, I'm assuming because of the way their behavior in the feds, right, towards towards us, point blank. Uh, you see norteños, you see bulldogs. It's against sureños. You know, and Mexico's different. It's across the board, right? All pochos, según ellos. But anyways, is when you start hearing this thing that we mistreat them in California, that we tax them. That's all that reaches. It's like a broken phone line. Imagine from Cali to the Feds, it done already a 180, right? Imagine from Cali to the Feds to Mexico, you know. But anyways, when he hit the yard, right, and he was the only senor there, he wasn't tolerating paisanos. What I mean is, I'll just touch on one thing, right? For example, he had just left where Benjamin was at, right? As you guys know, he was right there in Victorville. They had split up, and an incident happened where they were supposed to exchange some things, but Travieso's angle was to get the Ubers, right? And they were going to put the material. Somehow, some way, the material came up short. It was supposed to be, I'm just saying, right? It was supposed to be 10 kilos, right? It came out to be 9.5 per se, you know. And again, I'm just speaking on my neck on this. But anyways, he took it like a personal vendetta, right? That he was trying to get food, right? He had to empty already over there waiting, everything, and the material wasn't there, which it would have just been what, a skip and a hop wait for it to get there. After all, it's Tijuana, right? Nevertheless, the paisanos that were involved, he had the camaradas move on them. And then after that, he didn't want to work with paisanos no more at all. If there was some that would get there that wanted to program with us, right? Because they were used to it from Califas or whatever, he wasn't allowing it. He really had an angle against paisanos, excuse me. And it would eventually reach ears to Chino, Serrano, right? And, you know, right before we got split up, right? Up in the bay, he told me if I could check on it through the avenues, right? And Travieso had closed everything down. And it's real easy in the feds, like I stated before. There's other people doing big things to find new angles, right? But basically, what deemed him, because you could say that was Darellano, Benjamin shot a word straight to Chino because they were doing things on a side note, right? And he was hurt about this. He wanted him to look into it personally, so he got more involved in it. And I left 2015 when all this was going on. It was 2007, 8, around there, right? So for a minute, everything was quiet. Just that appeal came and basically Chino told me, hey camarada, just do me a favor and there's no dealings with travieso. I know your family are their own things, but if you get asked to, just don't ignore it. But well, you know what to do till we figure this thing out. Because of course you had paisanos get there from the mainland and asking, what's going on. Because it was worse than, let's say, we ran into Aztecas, right? We were still giving them the benefit of, hey, todo bien, stay in your corner, we stay on ours. With the paisanos, it was different because they're deep. You can't go up to them and say, hey, stay in your corner because right away they feel some type of way and it's going to go up. I know a lot of people lose sight of them being warriors, point blank. You know, Me personally, I don't agree with their ways. Yeah, it has to do with Mexico on how they're programmed to work, how they're programmed to tolerate certain things that don't matter if you're a game banger, just as a human being is trash. Sorry I say it like that, but it's just facts, you know. But anyways, as you guys probably noticed, that chemo still has me messed up. But what ended up happening, it became a big old issue of state feds, like they always like to push it, right? The state is trying to inflict his decisions or get involved with federal, you know, a business or federal factions business, I should say. And basically, Travieso being a young buck, right, per se, and got given the full control real fast, he lost sight that everyone starts in the state. It's rare of a Billy that's there now in the feds that did not do state time. And when you have an individual that's Chino Serrano, quiet, minding his business, programming shares, he still has friends out there. And as much as I dislike this individual, which is bad, bad work with Arellanos, he basically had a lot of respect when it came to paisanos, right? Again, as it should always be like that, right? But it goes both ways. They disliked us in the Pintas in Mexico, and there is camaradas, pilis that really do dislike them, right? For their behavior in the feds or for whatever reason. But anyways, it came from bad. Basically, he did a recall per se on Travieso because again, a lot of individuals got their wings clipped because of Rube trying to surround himself with both individuals and basically all his actions was measured, and unfortunately, is what led to him being set down. You know, again, he was worthy, is why he didn't get whacked out. But Bat gave the honor to Chino Serrano to get at Travieso and tell him, "You're no longer a carnal. You to sit down and wait to see when you're able to do this again." And just imagine, we talked about numerous abilities that get there and they get set down, but not many people talk about what the feeling of it do you think it is, being up there without much power, moving camaradas to your liking. Let's just say in this case, 10 paisanos get to the yard. You could tell camaradas, hey, whack them out. To, hey, sit down and follow program. It's hurtful, right? It's going to touch a chord. I think is a bigger chord being touched than you actually doing something and get told he has to wait a little better than to be made and have step set down again. You know, the worst part about it is the cruise, as I mentioned at the beginning, Travieso was helping Serrano on the streets. So they knew a lot of the same people. And guess what happens to camaradas? This individual went against me. I'm sorry, you ain't trustworthy no more. Remove him. It happened through a couple spots in Califas, right? One being High Desert and in Donovan. But I know about High Desert because Serrano sent a list to Terco, which was sent to me. And just from being from the same hood or had been on the streets doing things with Travieso for the Pilis, not even for himself, they were getting removed from the program. And you guys know how that happens. So once again, you see the message in this. I like I stated, and I'll stand on it. Serrano was a good Pili, understanding, but at the end of the day, to prove his agenda that he had more power, he removed numerous of camaradas out the program for no reason. Tell me what one thing had to do with the other. Travieso was a camarada doing his thing too. They weren't even doing it for Travieso. They were doing it for either Chino or for other Pilis in San Diego. But that mentality of I can't trust nobody, right? I gotta be better than the next man comes into play, and it comes into play in the sense of removing camaradas. You see, I believe that's why them yards are so packed full. Because if we would really dissect not what they're doing now, because I bet you there's a lot of fools hurt that jumped into doing uh weenie gangs, right? But for what they originally went to in SNY, there would be a lot more camaradas back there just because of political move. I'm sorry I would end up going to the feds. I heard Travieso was still programming as a camarada, so I can't give you an ending on what he's doing, what he's been up to, if he has been kept pushing or he decided it was just not for him no more, right? But again, this is just an in look on one angle of many on camaradas with just pawns. So hold value for yourself. Stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.
Come on, this is what we started. We always